All right, YouTube, what's up? So this one has been a work in progress. It's a Madeira. It's the 600. I should have known this, right? The 600R. I think that's a P600R. For some reason, these didn't get awesome reviews online. And I just mean the Madeira guitars. I've never seen a review of this guitar, and I'm going to do a review of this guitar. But let me tell you something. Look at there's so much weird light in here, but this is the most gorgeous rosewood back guitar. You know, until you start trying to record something, you don't realize how much ambient light there is messing up your life when you're trying to record. But this really has a gorgeous rosewood back and sides. Now they are applied. And if you look inside the sound hole, you will see that it's rosewood ply inside there. So I believe this was made in Japan. The little sticker on the back is rubbed off, so I can't verify it until I go out on the interweb and verify it. So what happened is I got this, I saw this show up on Facebook Marketplace. And I was on my way up to North Jersey, and I was going to be in the area, and I was like, all right, well, let me just go take a look. So the lady who was selling this guitar was one of those people. They bought a guitar, they held on it forever. She was a musician. She played the violin, so no disrespect. She ended up just never really taking to the guitar, but she held on to this guitar since the 70s. But apparently early on in her owning the guitar, maybe she had it under her bed, and then she put a couple of big gouges in the guitar here and like down in the lower bout. And what you find is if you try to refinish that, over the years, if the scratch broke through the finish on the guitar, the oils get into the wood and it leaves a stain. So even if I were to have perfectly filled in the scratch marks with poly or whatever, and sanded it to a gloss finish, you'd still see it. So in the midst of me sanding it and trying to get it to that point where I was, you don't know until you sand it where you're going to go when you break the finish to see if you're going to be able to do it or not. And you can see the reflection of the phone that I'm using to record the video here, and I have a Shure microphone down here that's going to record some of the playing of this guitar. But I thought this guitar was really pretty, especially with this rosewood. You know, when you're trying to see through the reflection, you get the gist of the beauty of this guitar. It's gorgeous, and I don't care if it's ply. It sounds really nice. Now, right now, these are not the permanent strings. You go through putting strings in the guitar, and I'm still in the process of sanding it to a nice smooth finish. And I'm not going to break open a brand new set of Ernie Ball Earthwoods in order to put it onto this guitar, only to take them off again. So I just have whatever strings I had taken off another guitar and were sitting in a drawer. But that said, I think it sounds pretty cool at this point. You know, I was getting to the point in the refinishing process where I was like, oh my God, I have to listen to this guitar. I don't even think I've ever played it. When I brought it home, I started messing with it, immediately pulled the strings off it and started sanding it. And it's become a much longer process for me to work on. I dig that song. Clearly, I'm working on it. I keep playing through so many different guitars. It's kind of hard to hit that thumb over to get that. So I'm working on it. Anyway, let's keep going. Yes, it's January 17th, I think, and we still have the Christmas tree up. We were really late in putting it up, so we just left it up, and now here we are, deep into January, with it still up. Sorry for the shaking. So what we have here is an experiment. I got a good deal on this guitar, and I think it really, really looks super cool. And one of the things that you can't see is how awesome the action is on this guitar. So in the beginning of my channel here, I'm buying guitars and I'm experimenting on them. And I'm going to sell some, and I'm selling some, and they're in various stages of completion if you watch one of my other videos. And this one, I stained over the rosette. I'm not quite sure how I would have preserved the rosette from the staining process. Wax or like that detailing tape. I don't know, but I did purchase a super cool Rosewood rosette. So the other task for me would be, or will be, to use my Dremel tool to put in a slight, relief into the top of this guitar to insert this, which didn't break, by the way, when I dropped it, because it dropped in the carpet. This Rosewood rosette. Now, the other thing I could do is a sticker with tape back, and you put that on there, and maybe that'll be all good. But I do have a Rosewood scratch plate. Now, when you have a guitar of a certain point like this that sounds, I'm going to say, good enough, you know, you can mess with the string configuration. I just put on ebony bridge pins, and I think that helps the tone. And I think a different string may bring out more of the sound of this guitar. But it is a laminate top. It's a laminate, you know, and I used to be kind of a snob about the guitars. Like, oh my God, it's got to be solid, or otherwise, you know, never. Until I got that 561 that came in as an Alvarez came in. You know, like I bought it. It came in. That I bought, and I ended up selling. But that sounded awesome. So I'm not discounting a ply. I'm going to call it a ply versus a laminate. The Honer guitar is a laminate guitar. The freebie, which is on my channel. And I'll do another video of that one with other guitars because I haven't sold it yet. But that's a true laminate in that it's a solid piece, a thin solid piece of wood with some bullshit beneath it and then another thing behind it. And it's like plywood. And it looks nice, and it makes guitar sounds, and it's not terrible. But I would say that this guitar is something that they were doing in Japan to keep the guitars from breaking on their travels from Japan to the United States. Is they were using ply of the woods themselves, just because it separates the grain. I think, in my mind, knowing wood the way I do, if you have a ply and you take the same wood in a thin veneer style and you slide it over and you put the same wood on top of it, you're going to have a stronger wood just because you don't have the grain going all the way through, and it'll protect the wood from cracking in shipment. I think that's what they were accomplishing there. And it's gorgeous. So you have that trade-off. Now, I have a 1967 Gibson, which my son now can't afford to own. He has a Taylor guitar, which he was going to sell and then pay for half of this Gibson that he bought, or I bought for him on a credit card that I'm owning for him. And somebody said that his guitar that he was selling has a twist in the neck. So now we have to decide what we're going to do. Either I'm going to sell guitars and keep it, or we're just going to sell it and it'll be yours, somebody out there. So this guitar, I will do a future review. But what I found out from the refinishing process is you can get pretty cool colors if you take your time picking them out. I didn't spray it on, I rubbed it on, and that's different than probably what most of the manufacturers are doing. They're probably a sprayed on finish, and I don't know about that yet. Sorry, this is wool. And I'm going to work with that, but this came out pretty cool. There was a part of me that thought if it didn't really come out with a two-tone, I would just go all ebony, because this dark color here is ebony. It's not black, it's ebony. And I have ebony bridge pins. These are real wood. These are real ebony bridge pins. They're not just the plastic black. But when I laid on the finish, it will dry dark. Like if you rubbed it in, you rub it off, and it won't absorb. But if you leave it on, it'll dry on, and then you can poly over it, and it leaves a nice finish. The only challenge I had is the finish itself can go on kind of thick, and then you can end up with little ripples that are on the wood. So by putting on more poly, I'm going to be able to sand it down and sand it smooth and get those, hopefully get any imperfections out of there and end up with a nice, kind of smooth finish like this once I get to that point. And that's my goal, is to get the top to be as smooth as the back and sides and hide any of the kind of heavy putting on of the finish. Now, I'm kind of stuck. I thought the rosette that came in was going to be a sticky back, but it's not. In order for me to put it on, I have to route in the space for the rosette to go in around here. It will look super cool if I can get it done. But when the sound hole's already missing, to pull a router around here in a circle, they do all that stuff. I was going to say shit, but they do all that shit before the top goes on and before the neck goes over. To try to do it after is going to be a real monster. But I may do it. My wife's like, how much time are you going to spend on this guitar? I'll be like, that's not a good impersonation of my wife, and she would be really mad at me. But what ends up happening is you go, how much time can I really spend on this guitar? Well, as much time as I really want to spend. Who cares? I have a day job. This isn't my day job. And if I want to experiment, which I do, and try to make guitars look cool, which I do, I'm going to have to try to figure this out. Because you can't just stick this onto the surface of the top. Right? You just can't, because as cool as it may end up looking, it's still a good, millimeter thick. So as long as I get it in onto the top some, I can sand it smooth, poly over it, and move on with my life. Put on the pick guard and call this a cool guitar. I'm happy that I put the strings on it and it sounds nice. Because if you do all this work with a guitar you've never played and you go, wow, that sounds like shit. Yeah, I would have been pretty bummed out. But what I liked about the guitar is that the action was really good. And so many of the guitars that I'm messing with right now, the action is not good. Like they got a little thing going on. And they got a little, You know, it's really down here from like the 9th fret on. You know, they're not good action. The strings are really high. It does take you some time to work on it to where you know, I can play that guitar with a high action. It's just when you're doing the little things with the pinky doesn't really want to cooperate. I can do bar chords, and I can do almost strumming, and I can do most everything else. What I can't really do is in this. That's the pinky. I find in the guitars with the high action, the pinky just doesn't really want to cooperate. So I'm in the process of trying to straighten 2 necks right now. And I watched a luthier course on YouTube, and he did a process where you heat the guitar neck, and then you pretty much put it in a wooden vise. So he's got a 2x4, a couple pieces of wood here to create the tension. And what I did too is I added a flat piece of hardwood behind it, so that instead of just having a single point, you know, like a single point of pressure, I have like a flat pressure. So I'm really just trying to flatten these necks out and see if I can get the action to work. The truss rods are working, easy for you to say. The truss rods were working fine, but you know, the necks just, the humidity, and they get bending in a certain way over time with the tension of the strings pulling on the neck, and they just want to stay pulled up. So you've got to get them to go flat. I may end up having to crown some frets. I don't know. We'll see when the time comes, when I take them out of their vices that they're in. But that's the thing about buying an old guitar. Buying this old guitar from that lady, really nice lady. She was on her way to her Christmas party, and I kind of negotiated $50 off the guitar. And I don't feel bad about it, because this has been a tremendous amount of work, because they're not highly valued the way, and maybe because they're just pumping out so many shitty guitars from China under $400 that can hold a tune, that good guitars made in Japan in the 70s that you're gonna mess with the action don't seem as valuable. And I just know that this guitar is more valuable than that crappy Honer that came out of China. And I'm calling it crappy, and somebody would pay $300 for it new. And it's not as nice a guitar as this, even though these didn't get awesome reviews. And I don't think it was made in Korea. I honestly think this was made in Japan. And like the things that this guitar has that other guitar has, and this of course is not a guitar review. I'll do one of those once I get it finished and I do a nice end on it. This is a solid neck. This is one piece. And this may be a completely one-piece neck all the way down, a one-piece mahogany neck. You're just never going to get that from a Chinese-made guitar in 2020. You're not. It's going to be some piece of crap, and it's going to be a bunch of pieces, and it's going to have crappy tuning machines, and you're always going to be messing with it. But this is a really good, I would say mid-range guitar. It's never going to sound like the Gibson because it's not a solid top, but it's not as temperamental either. This is from the 70s, and it doesn't have any like the finish was fine except for the scratch. There was no checking. It was obviously a poly, and the poly doesn't have the same problems, but it doesn't give you the same resonance and tone that your vintage Gibson will. So I would never sell against the Gibson because I have to sell the Gibson probably, and it's just an amazing guitar. And if you're a guitar player and you're like, yeah, it's worth the extra $2,000 for me to get the guitar that does that, versus guitars that don't, and they just won't. And there's a guitar like this will never do what that Gibson will do. And the Gibson has some other cool about it, but this guitar will do what a $400 Chinese guitar won't do from Honer or whatever. I can't vouch for the Yamaha guitars. I haven't bought one of those yet. I'll probably buy one just so I can have it to compare. But if you own a guitar and you go, well, what can I do to make my guitar sound better? Practice. because you're making the guitar sounds, right? I'm sorry, I have a cat. I got a cat hair on my face. But you can do things like put in a bone bridge saddle. Change the bridge pins from plastic to like ebony or bone. You could do that. You could change the nut from plastic to bone. And most of it's going to come down to you with a proper setup on your guitar and practicing. But change your strings. Changing the gauge, changing the brand, changing the alloys, they will sound different on your guitar. If you want to play fingerstyle, this sounds better in fingerstyle than it does strumming, I'll tell you that. What are you going to do? You know, and at the end of the day, when you're playing the guitar, the joy that it brings you is going to be worth the money and the time that you put into it. So the time that I put into this guitar, whether I keep it or sell it, has been well worth it because I learned something in the process of working on it. I learned that the hardest thing to do is to straighten the neck. It's easy to put on new strings. It's easy to change the bridge pins. You can practice because that's just you playing and enjoying the guitar. And I think at the end of the day, when you're buying a guitar, if the neck, and the necks are never straight, right? But the necks are in a range of acceptable play so that the action that you end up with at the top, right, and all the way down the neck, and this is a well set up guitar, it's very playable. If it's not, it's going to be a bear. It's going to take you a little while to figure out the kind of tension you need from your fingers in order to make the kind of guitar sounds that you want to make. Your picks matter. The plectrums that you're using. And I have a bunch of different picks that I'll go through, and then you just go, do I really want a nice mellow sound? Do you want something more bright? With how you strum it and whatever, but still the picks that you're using will affect the tone of the guitar. They absolutely will. And probably record yourself, buy yourself a microphone like this one for $100. It's the Shure SV51. I bought one for my stepdaughter, a Comica mic, USB. You can plug it right into the phone. Right now I'm recording with my Samsung camera with the microphone plugged right into the phone, and then I download it using some Samsung app onto my Mac into iMovie, and then I go from iMovie in. So there's nothing being done to the sound. It is what it is. It's a USB microphone. It's as good as it is. When I have more time and learn how to do it, I'll probably drop the audio from my recordings into GarageBand and then use GarageBand to take out any unintentional reverb from the microphone so that you get the most authentic sound for what I hear in the room playing for you. I put up some videos and the level was low. And then you find out things about YouTube, like they don't let you change the volume setting in the Creator Studio anymore. So I have to go back and make sure before I download a video that the audio portion of it is acceptable. So you're not like on high going, I can almost hear this guy. So there's a lot that goes into making a video. There's a ton that's been going into me making this guitar cooler than it was when I bought it. If at some point you want to own it, it's going to be when it's done, and it's not done right now. But I wanted to give you an update on this guitar and me and where my head's at with this channel. It's fun. Buy this. This is the Waverly string winder. This thing is awesome. I got this one in ebony. It was on sale. This thing winds the crap out of your guitar. I love it. You know, and I'm not, obviously, what I got, like 4 subscribers. This is not a plug for me to make money, but this works really well because I'm putting on a lot of strings, taking them off, putting them on, taking them off. But get yourself one of these, so it makes changing the strings not a real pain in the ass. Okay, so thank you for watching this video. I think this is going to be a beautiful guitar that sounds super cool. It's going to have been worth the wait, and I'll show you once I get the rosette figured out. I have the pick guard. The pick guard's ready to rock and roll, and I have to wait until I put the rosette to put the pick guard on. But I have to wait to smooth that finish out because I may end up poling over the rosette, right, once I get it figured out. All right, thanks for watching. Subscribe. I'll check you out in the next video. Hope you're having a great day. It's not Christmas, but Merry Christmas.